Well, it was, of course, Britain, along with France, that spearheaded the NATO campaign in Libya. And joining me now in the studio to discuss the situation there is the British Defence Minister, Liam Fox. Mr Fox, we'll talk about the security situation in a moment or two. Just wanted to get your thoughts, though, on that statement by the NTC, yet again, that al-Megrahi is not to be extradited either to the UK or the US. What is the British government's views on that?
Well, our view is, of course, that the sending back of Megrahi to Libya by the Scottish Government was completely wrong and unjustified. We are where we are. I understand that Libyan law actually prohibits Libyan citizens being extradited. I think, however, the NTC have said that they are keen to discuss legacy issues and to deal with them in Libya. So that is what we will want to talk to them about.
So it sounds like you don't think the door is closed, then?
Well, the question is, do we get resolution of the problem? And that will be for us to have discussions with the NTC when the government really have their feet under the table. They've made it very clear, as I say, that they're willing to deal with legacy issues. Let's deal with them at the appropriate time. All
right, well, let's deal with the current situation, because we know, of course, that the NATO mission in the skies above Libya is continuing. We know that in the last couple of hours that there have been quite heavy strikes on bunkers in Sirte, Colonel Gaddafi's hometown, of course. How long do you think this mission should continue? Are we talking weeks here? Are we talking months? I mean, what is the cut-off point for NATO?
Well, let's go back to the original reason that we are carrying out the mission. It's to protect the civilian population of Libya. So as soon as they're no longer threatened by the remnants of the Gaddafi regime, NATO's job will effectively be over. The question is whether the remnants of the regime will recognise that the game is up, which it is, and stop threatening the population. And as long as there are the command and control capabilities in places like Sirte or Seba, where the remnants of the Gaddafi regime could use them to attack the civilian population, NATO will continue to degrade those capabilities.
But how does NATO know that they are still active? How does it know what threats do remain? I mean, how does bombing certain bunkers in Sirte, for example, where clearly obviously there are Gaddafi supporters, how does that constitute, those particular supporters constitute a threat to the civilian population under that UN mandate?
Because there is a threat of counterattack against the NTC, against the Libyan people, and we want to make sure that that threat is no longer there. Of course, the easiest way for this to end is for the remnants of the regime to lay down their arms, accept the will of the Libyan people, and to work with them to a new constitution and allow the Libyan people to determine their own destiny.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? We heard earlier from Muammar Gaddafi, and he was talking about, well, you know, effectively the game is up. He is happy to talk about how Libya moves forward. The NTC has completely ruled that out. Were they right to do so? I mean, this is a man who does still command a lot of respect and has leadership, if you like, of many people still in Libya, and he's saying, I want to talk about this now. Should they not be talking to him?
A little late, after 40 years of repression of the Libyan people, when we look at the sort of atrocities that may have been committed even in recent days. If Gaddafi had wanted to talk to the NTC or the Libyan people about their future, he had a long time in which he was able to do so. The time for him is beyond talking now.
So his role is completely over now?
His role in Libya is in history.
Can Libya be properly liberated, though, without the capture of Muammar Gaddafi?
I think it's a question now of whether the other remnants of, as I say, of the regime recognise that they now need to work with the NTC. And I think it's very encouraging that the NTC have talked about reaching out to those members of the former regime who are reconcilable with a different future for Libya. That is in stark contrast, for example, to the de-Baathification that took place in Iraq. So I think lessons have been learned there, and I think that's a very positive outlook that the NTC seem to be taking, likewise when they talk about handing Gaddafi over, when they catch him, to the International Criminal Court, rather than having any sense of retribution in Libya. I think these are all very positive steps that the international community will welcome.
I know that the UK has been in constant contact with the NTC, but how confident are you in their abilities to, first of all, keep control of the situation on the ground in Tripoli, and then, of course, in other areas of Libya as and when the Libyan fighters move into those cities? Do you believe that the NTC has real control over what is a varied mix of people on the ground.
It is. I think, first of all, we need to see the leaders of the NTC move back to Tripoli as soon as is practical to do so. I think that will give greater confidence in the governmental process in Libya. And I think that then it's dependent upon the reaction of the people themselves, how much they want to give credence to this new authority. I think what we see gives us a certain level of confidence that that will happen. And then I think that, of course, the question is whether they need help to maintain order on the ground. Should they request extra help, that would be through the United Nations. And if that were to happen, I would hope that we would see additional forces from the region, from the Arab League, from the African Union, to make very clear that this is primarily a Libyan problem. We want to see a Libyan solution by the Libyan people, for the Libyan people, and where the extra help may be required, it comes from the region itself.
Right, so that's you reaffirming that effectively the UK, certainly the US, we know, maybe NATO would have absolutely no part to play. If things did degenerate, we all hope it doesn't, but if things on the ground degenerated and that there was tribal warfare on the ground, that NATO, the UK, the US would not want to be a part of that. You would, I don't want to put it like this, but abdicate responsibility to the region. I mean, for example, the African Union hasn't even recognised the NTC yet.
What we've said is no British troops on the ground. We made it clear from the outset. We were very willing to use our air assets and our maritime assets to give protection to the Libyan people. But that ultimately the lesson from the Arab Spring is that the people of the region, particularly young people, want to be the ones to control their own destiny. And we've got to help them to do that, but they have to be the prime movers in the process. The international community, through the United Nations, through the Security Council, and the military action mediated through NATO on behalf of the UN, were willing to give the protection to that population during the process, while they were able to make this political transition to stop them being victimized by the Gaddafi regime. But I hope now that Libya, along with the other countries in the north of Africa, are able to make their own choices about their own constitutional arrangements, about their own forms of government, and that they can work with the international community to deal with humanitarian issues, perhaps security issues. But I think that we have every right to believe that the Arab Spring, as it moves into the Arab summer, has a very good chance of success to give people a real opportunity to determine the shape of the destiny of their own countries. And that, when we look back to January of this year, is an enormous difference.
Ian Fox, we must leave it there. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.